What is up, everybody? After our morning in Tampa, Aaron and I made the 2-hour drive out to the Sun and Lake Preserve for the beginning of Orange Blossom Gravel. The event kicked off at 3 o'clock with the single track hot laps. After some practice laps, they were timing the laps to see who could do the fastest ones on this pump track here. Me and Aaron didn't actually race this. We more hung out. We caught up with some old friends that we've met from other events like this, started to hang out and meet some new friends. Also, I was obviously taking photos and video, and so were a number of other people, so it was a good chance to also nerd out with some camera talk. And of course, there was always plenty of saddle sniffing, checking out everybody else's bikes and getting into those conversations. I just did a very short ride around the area to check it out a little bit. And then Aaron and I got in the truck and headed off to Avon Park, where the event's main activities would be taking place at the Jacaranda Hotel. But we made some very poor eating decisions, and we were really, really hungry. So we stopped in town for some Mexican food at this Mexican restaurant and market. We also picked up some great pastries that we would have for breakfast the next day. From 4 to 8 at the hotel was the Makers Market and also just a little bit of a party. So people were hanging out kind of all over the place, again, checking out all the stuff to buy, which we really couldn't get too much beyond some stickers because obviously we were flying with a pretty packed luggage. But still another really great chance to catch up with people and meet a bunch of new people. The majority of the people at the event were staying at the hotel. I had actually kind of slept on the reservation, unfortunately, and it was sold out by the time we looked it up. So Aaron and I were actually staying about 8 miles down the road in Sebring, Florida. Aaron drove home earlier and I made the ride. The ride was actually great because it was mostly bike paths and a little bit of neighborhood and then an area around the lake, but nothing uncomfortable even later in the evening after dark. That being said, we both said we would not sleep on it next year and we would make sure we got a reservation at the hotel. I feel like that would help make it feel more like a cohesive event. I know some people really liked having their Airbnbs and got a spot on the lake and all that, but I feel like I would prefer to be there and among everything going on. There were multiple routes. The people doing the over 90-mile route took off at 8 o'clock, and then the 60-mile route, which we were doing, took off at 8:30, though we left a couple minutes earlier when we were finished with our coffee and ready to roll. It was a beautiful morning to start the ride. It was actually fairly cool. You could see we're wearing long sleeve wool as we started. There's pretty fog everywhere as we got out of Avon Park, through some of the neighborhoods, onto the more rural roads and into the orange groves. As we hit the gravel, it became so wonderful because you could smell all the orange blossoms in the air, something I've never experienced before, and it's just very, very cool. Hell yeah. As Stephen, the organizer, had said, this is old Florida, the areas that are more untouched by tourism. So it's very cool to see a different side of Florida. Almost everything you see is the beach or the springs and stuff like that. So yeah, being out amongst the orange groves and everything is super cool. Here we're hitting these awesome clay trails. It was super dry out, so a lot of it became very, very sandy. Being that there's not a ton of elevation on this route, the sand kind of was the fun challenge of it all. Aaron and I were prepared on the right bikes, and we almost never had to put a foot down, as they like to say. We were able to get through it all, but definitely some of the people on skinnier tires were pushing their bikes at different times. So even though for a 60-mile route, I think there's maybe 1,200 feet elevation, a little less, it's not completely flat out here. We were told this is the hilliest part of Florida. So as you'll see, there were still some really cool views. It wasn't just pan flat where you could never see over the trees or anything like that. There were views of the lakes. I was saying it actually felt a little bit like some areas of rural Ohio that are just more rolling. It was at this point in the ride that some of the other riders started to catch us, so it was cool to start to meet some people, talk to people we had talked to on Friday evening, or just run some new people and start to have conversations out on the road as you ride together for a little bit and then move on. By the way, that black thing in the corner of my screen is my windscreen sometimes. It was actually getting in my image on the top, so I ripped off the top of the windscreen, and when I was filming, I didn't realize it was in the corner. So yes, it's annoying me more than it's annoying you. You don't need to point it out. Aaron and I just also love to be in a completely different place, to be checking out the different trees and vegetation. Aaron's become more of a birder too, so with our bird app, checking out all the different Florida birds that were out there and trying to identify them. We did not see any gators on this ride though. Here we ran into Anthony and his buddy from Cleveland. Anthony actually prints all my stickers, Canopy Press. He also printed the bandanas for this event. So check out Canopy Press. And if you want to buy some stickers in my link below, you're supporting 2 small businesses. We ended up riding most of the rest of the day with him as well. I can't believe that guy on the Bike Friday made it through all the sand. As you also saw, there was a guy out there on a tall bike riding, and he said he did really, really well on these roads.
That's kind of cool view.
It was a total mix of bikes out here, by the way. There were a lot of vintage mountain bikes, some drop bar conversions on those. There were people who were more race-oriented, even though it was a non-competitive event. They were still going and hitting it hard with carbon bikes and kits. So yeah, pretty much the full spread that you can have. There was ATVs like mine. There were all cities, gravel bikes, steel gravel bikes, the whole thing. There were really only 2 resupplies on the 60-mile route. One was this gas station convenience store here, so we made sure to stop and get some things. And then there was an aid station out at a park later along the lake. So if you do this ride, you do need to be a little prepared. I would say it's not fully self-supported, but it more leans in that way. Those are workers here picking the strawberry fields. Aaron and I, on our way back to Tampa the next day, actually got some fresh strawberries, and they were amazing. I shot these clips and a few other with the HOVERAir Pro Max. Really cool little follow-along drone. I showed it in a previous video in the snowy weather. Basically, you just put it in your hand, let it take off, and it follows behind you at however you have it set to do so. I'm still looking forward to do some more experimentation with that. I want to do it where it goes in the side mode or follows in front of you. I just haven't messed around with it too much yet as it's very new, and here in Ohio, it's been too cold to fly it. These orange roads and the blue sky were just so cool to see. Something just so unique and different to anything I've ever ridden in before. Also, the fact that it was a little bit cloudy was kind of nice because it got up to over 80 on this day. A lot of people were like, were you too hot? Were you too humid? No, this felt absolutely wonderful. If it had been just pure sun, it might have been a little too warm. I don't know, too warm? Too warm for some people. Coming from Ohio, we were happy to be in the heat. And me and Aaron aren't really people who are bothered by the heat that much, so we love summertime. The event in general was a little unique. because every alt cycling or non-competitive event we've ever done has been a camping type one. So whether that's been Nutmeg, kind of the originator, or Hodag, Meet Me in Manchester, Gunk's Not Dead, everyone's kind of on the campground together and there's not really amenities around there. So the organizers kind of have to have stuff going on to take care of you in different ways. Whereas Avon Park is a town, so if you wanted to go get something to eat besides the food provided, you could just walk across the street. There's some bars around and all that. So yeah, not better or worse, but just definitely different than any of the events we had done before. Here we are rolling into the aid station. It was kind of cool because while we were here, some of the people doing the long route happened to pull in, so we got to chat with some of them and see how it was going. They were at mile 58, I believe, while we were more at mile 45. There's Brian, Yellowbird Threadworks. He was doing the long route. Also, they had boiled peanuts at the aid station. If you've never had boiled peanuts in the South, I absolutely love them, but it's kind of a divisive thing. I think most people like them, but Aaron was a little underwhelmed. Also, there's Concrete Trails, Todd. So always good to see him. We've run into each other at so many of the different alt cycling events over the years now.
Clap your hands and go, go, go. Shout, I'm alive and I know that something good is gonna happen when I let go, hold my fears and never ever look back again.
Erin is so in tune with her bike fit that she was adjusting her saddle a few times to get it perfectly right, as we had to lower them to fly on the plane. I mentioned in the last video, but I'm going to make a whole video that'll be separate from this about traveling with our bikes and how it went for us being our first time and everything. I'm the opposite. I eyeballed my saddle. I knew my bars were not even at the same tilt as I usually have them. I'm like, that's good enough.
Clap your hands and go, go, go. Shout, I am free and I know that something good is gonna happen when I let
So towards the end of the ride, it was pretty cool because we got to see a little bit of activity in the groves. They were picking oranges in spots. If you don't know, Florida's orange industry is being devastated by citrus greening. It's a bug that gets a bacteria into the trees. It ends up killing them. A lot of the fruits never get fully ripe. So we actually passed dead orchards as well. It was, I guess you call them groves, not orchards. But yeah, it was interesting to see and learn all about that.
good is gonna happen.
You can see here some of the younger trees they're replanting are covered in this netting, and the goal is to try and keep the bugs out. There's all kinds of different things they've been trying. Nothing has fully worked yet, though.
Freedom's calling me.
Here we are arriving back in Avon Park. We were able to ride with a couple other different people here, and this is the historic Jacaranda Hotel where the event was taking place that we're riding by, and then around back to the finish behind it.
Clap your hands and go, go, go. Shout, I am free and I know that something good is gonna happen when
The rest of the afternoon was spent getting some food, having some drinks, just hanging out, watching the other riders roll in, waiting for the DFL, the Dead Effing Last, which got one of these gator heads, and I believe a Yellowbird Threadwork stem cap too.
never look back again.
It was an absolute great night of kicking it with, as I've mentioned, old friends, new friends. There's a couple new friends who were rolling in after finishing the longest ride they'd ever done. So yeah, super cool, super fun. There's the DFL award right there. Aaron had taken off again a little before me, so I ended up doing another solo ride back to the Airbnb. I think it was around 10 o'clock at night is how long I ended up hanging out. In the morning, we loaded the truck up, and then we headed to a Cuban spot for breakfast in Avon Park. Back in Tampa, we just kind of had a weird amount of time between when we needed to be at the airport and when we got there. So we just went and had a drink at a brewery and a coffee shop before getting our bikes packed back up and heading over there. We figured why rush ourselves either, because only the second time we've ever put them into bags. But everything went smooth, and believe it or not, in the middle of the huge ice and snowstorm hitting the whole country, we flew back to Cleveland and were completely on time. The next day it was only 14 degrees as I rode over to Aaron's house to grab my car and all this snow. A number of people are like, doesn't that just make it worse to come back? But no, it doesn't. I would always rather go and be somewhere warm for a little while. Even standing here in my photography studio making this video, it's given me all the good warm vibes again. So thanks so much to Steven and everybody else who volunteered and sponsored and helped out with the event. We had an absolute blast. Our goal is to make it back next year. Hopefully then we'll have time to meet up with some other people in the Tampa and Florida area, which we just didn't on this trip. So while you look at some of the photos I took at Orange Blossom Gravel, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed already, do all those things us YouTubers have to tell you to do, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.